for sharing your introductions. I think let's get started with an opening from Anissa Turbai from the Grand Challenges Canada. I'd like to say a few words to get us started.
Thank you, Jasmine. Hello and welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, depending where you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining us here today. As a quick introduction, my name is Anissa, and I'm part of the Saving Brains team here at Grand Challenges Canada. It's really, truly a pleasure to welcome you all to this virtual space as we come together to discuss today's webinar topic of how parenting programs can reduce violence against children and women, which is a topic that's not just important, but rather fundamental to creating lasting change. And here at GCC, investing in gender transformative innovation is at the core of our mandate and is closely aligned with the Government of Canada's Feminist International Assistance Policy, which targets gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls. And the work seen from GCC's support in the Saving Brains community really reflects and enacts this commitment to gender equity, ensuring that it's not just an aspiration, but a reality. And many of you here today are a part of this change through your ongoing work in demonstrating the importance of gender modeling in early childhood development and evidence on fatherhood engagement and how equitable partnerships at home can reduce violence and create positive and lasting impacts on children. Also, through the work that many of you are a part of, we've learned that in order for gender equity initiatives to be truly transformative, they must extend beyond the family unit and require systems and structures that are gender responsive and integrated at different levels to create lasting and impactful change. And one of the many reasons that I'm excited about today's conversation is because it's about more than just presenting ideas. It's about taking action and taking away tangible insights and lessons from some really brilliant subject matter experts we have on our panel here today. So I hope that today will be engaging and participatory space where we can learn from one another and work towards developing a collective, valuable community resource. So thank you all for being here. I look forward to our discussion ahead, and I'll pass it back over to you, Jasmine.
Thank you so much, Anissa. And for those who are just joining us right now, welcome again. And please continue to use the chat function to introduce yourselves. And then as well, there is a Q&A box that you can use to ask questions throughout the webinar. And we'll pick those up towards the end of the discussion. But for now, I wanted to pass it over to Kate Doyle from the Prevention Collaborative to begin the webinar.
Great, and thank you, Jasmine. I'm going to start by sharing with you a series of briefs that the Prevention Collaborative has developed together with UNICEF and Equimundo, and then I'm going to hand it over to colleagues Emmanuel Karamage and Beatrice Ogutu, who are going to actually bring to life some of the work that we're talking about in the briefs and share their experiences with you. Next slide, please. Right. And I think there might be a bit of an echo, so just ask that, people mute their microphones if it is on. The reason that we're all here today is because we really want to highlight the promise that parenting programs have of being able to reduce both violence against children, but also violence against women. And that is something that has brought together my organization, the Prevention Collaborative, together with UNICEF and Equimundo. And first, I'll share a little bit about the rationale behind the series that we've developed, and then I'll give you a little bit of a sneak peek into the briefs themselves. Next slide, please. Great. So we know that both violence against women and violence against children intersect, and far too many children around the world grow up in homes that are characterized by violence against themselves, but also violence against their mothers or female caregivers. And in particular, this evidence comes from research on violent discipline, which includes both psychological and physical violence against children, as well as intimate partner violence against women. And research has shown that these two different types of violence often co-occur within families, so children may be exposed to multiple types of violence within the same family. And both types of violence also have similar and compounding consequences for children's and women's health and for child development. We also know from research that they have intergenerational effects. So children's exposure to both types of violence within the home increase the risk of future violence for themselves, but also for their future children. And both types of violence also share many different risk factors, both at the family level and at the community level. And they also have shared social norms, and many of those norms are rooted in gender inequality. And we know that harmful gender norms perpetuate violence, both against women and against children, but they also fundamentally shape parenting practices and children's opportunities. So how parents engage with their children. I think there's a bit of an echo. I'll just, ask that everyone mute. And the opportunities they give to their children, whether or not they are a boy or a girl, or based on their sex or gender identity. Next slide, please. And so a number of years ago, our affinity group bringing together Prevention Collaborative, UNICEF, and Equimundo came together because our organizations, while having different scopes of work, do share common goals of preventing violence against children and violence against women. And in particular, we saw parent and caregiver support programs offering a particular opportunity to work at the intersections of violence against children and violence against women, which have traditionally been quite siloed fields. And we saw this opportunity because parenting programs do reach parents and caregivers in many communities. And there's this growing evidence base that suggests that they can be strengthened to reduce both types of violence. And so we came together to try and cultivate interest, but also support parenting practitioners to design or adapt their programs to be able to intentionally prevent both violence against children and violence against women. Next slide, please. And I'll share a little bit about the evidence base before I jump into the briefs themselves. There is a growing evidence base that parenting programs can reduce both violent discipline and intimate partner violence simultaneously. A recent 2024 systematic review led by UNICEF Innocenti and the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine found 19 programs addressing both types of violence, and all but one of those was in a low or middle income country. And that review shows that there's evidence from both parenting programs, but also from intimate partner violence prevention programs that happen to work with parents, that programs can reduce both types of violence. And the review, as well as other research, has highlighted how many of these effective programs are gender transformative. They intentionally seek to address harmful gender norms and promote gender equality. And I'll share a little bit more about what that looks like later on. But this evidence base does remain limited, particularly for adolescents, vulnerable groups, and in humanitarian settings. But it highlights the opportunity to really do more to strengthen parenting programs to address both types of violence. Next slide, please. And that's really what these briefs are all about, highlighting parenting programs as an opportunity to do more. And failing to address both types of violence is a missed opportunity. We might be able to address violence against children, but many children might still be exposed to intimate partner violence within their homes, which can undermine the aims of parenting programs. It might make it harder for parents to adopt positive parenting practices, and children are still exposed to the same harmful consequences. But the existing evidence highlights a number of entry points that we can use to strengthen parenting programs to reduce both violence against children and violence against women. And importantly, there's a growing interest among parenting practitioners to do so. And I think we can see that here today by there's more than 170 of you joining from around the world to hear more about these briefs. Next slide, please. So about the series. The series is called Parenting Programs to Reduce Violence Against Children and Women, and it has 4 briefs that are designed to support practitioners to adopt a gender transformative approach to prevent violence against children and violence against women in parenting programs. And the briefs build upon each other to outline why, what, and how you might go about doing so. The first one is, why is it important? The second brief, what gender transformative programs look like. And the third brief is how to adapt programs to address both types of violence. And the fourth brief, which is coming very soon in April, looks at how to measure change once you've adapted your program. And before I go into the briefs, I do want to note that we're referring to parents and caregivers interchangeably. So those might be individuals with a primary role in caring for children. They might be biological, adoptive, or foster parents. They could be grandparents or other relatives or guardians. Next slide, please. So brief number one, what's inside the brief, why it is important. This brief is really designed to make the case for why parenting programs should seek to reduce violence against children and violence against women. And it's organized around 3 parts. The first part being why violence prevention matters for parenting programs. The second part, evidence that parenting programs can reduce violence in the home. And the third part is why parenting programs should promote gender equality and highlighting the important linkages between gender norms and parenting and violence within the home. And the brief also includes a number of recommended resources. This might be guidance, online courses, or research to help practitioners understand the intersections between violence against children and violence against women. So this can be a really helpful brief in trying to understand the research and the rationale behind this approach, which can be important for sharing within your organization, but also potentially sharing with policymakers or others who you might want to influence to be concerned about this topic. Next slide, please. Then the second brief, what gender transformative programs look like, tries to really unpack what gender transformative parenting programs that reduce family violence look like to help you understand what it is that they do and how they achieve that change. And it really is designed to provide insights for strengthening parenting programs. And it's organized around 4 parts. What gender transformative parenting programs to reduce family violence are, what are their common program principles, what are their common delivery features and characteristics? And lastly, what is the common program content that these programs include? And like brief 1, it ends with recommended resources that can support the design of gender transformative programs, including how to engage men and fathers. Next slide, please. And so I'm going to dig a little bit into this brief while I have you all here to share a little bit about what gender transformative parenting programs do. And they're really designed to seek and to address the root causes of gender-based inequalities and to challenge or transform harmful gender roles, norms, and power imbalances. So these programs are designed to work with parents to promote caring, supportive, and nonviolent interactions for the whole family. And very often these programs also work to promote equitable relationships between caregivers, where partners share caregiving and decision-making responsibilities. And they're also often designed to promote parents or caregivers' capacity to raise their children free from gender stereotypes. So to promote positive gender socialization, where parents can raise children with opportunities. Next slide, please. And we see through our review and these briefs that gender transformative parenting programs share a number of common principles. So they're grounded in gender equality and women's rights. They explicitly engage men as equitable parents and caregivers alongside women. This might be through sessions together with men and women or separately. And we'll hear a little bit more from Emmanuel later on about a program in Rwanda that is particularly designed to engage men as fathers. These programs engage communities in program design or adaptation, and they apply a strengths-based approach and try to meet parents where they are, trying to build upon the skills that parents seek and how they can raise their children free from violence and how they can support them with behavioral management and other types of skills they're looking to build. They promote women's and children's safety and rights, and they understand that doing this work might present risks for both women and children, and they're set up to be able to respond to those risks. And these programs also recognize that violence prevention requires work at all levels of the socio-ecological model, so not just within the family. And although many programs only do work at the family level, they recognize that broader work is required at the community level, at the level of institutions and society to be able to prevent violence over the longer term. Next slide, please. And some of the content that these programs include is often designed around participatory activities that aim to promote critical reflection on gender norms and power imbalances. They aim to raise awareness of violence both against women and children and the consequences that violence has for children, for parents, for families. They're designed to build couple relationship skills like communication or conflict negotiation, while also working to strengthen caregiving and parenting skills, such as positive parenting skills. And they build skills to manage emotions, supporting parents to regulate their own emotions, but also often to support parents to raise children and help them develop their own emotional regulation skills. And they promote more equitable family dynamics, where parents share responsibilities for household work, for caregiving, for decision making. And they promote positive gender socialization, as I shared earlier, aiming to raise children free from gender stereotypes. So these commonalities that we see in some effective gender transformative parenting programs or programs that work with parents do provide us insights that we could use to then strengthen parenting programs to reduce family violence. Next slide, please. And that's where brief number 3 comes in, which is designed around how to adapt programs to address both types of violence. So this is really a step-by-step guide that guides practitioners through 5 stages of adaptation, step-by-step and with checklists, to be able to integrate intimate partner violence prevention and gender equality within existing parenting programs. And those 5 stages are, number 1, gaining organizational and stakeholder buy-in for adaptation. So how do you make sure that your organization and the partners that you work with are on board with making these changes and understand the importance of doing so? Step 2 or stage 2, consulting parents and understanding gender and violence in your context, both through existing research or potentially additional formative research with parents and caregivers in your community. Stage 3, adapting your program recruitment, content, and design. This might be around adapting your program to engage men as well as women in the program. At stage 4, then testing and refining that adapted content and program to understand whether or not those changes are working before rolling it out into a community. And then stage 5, training and adequately supporting facilitators to successfully implement your adapted program with parents and caregivers in the community. And like the previous 2 briefs, this brief includes recommended resources that can support practitioners at all stages of adaptation. Next slide, please. And we want to highlight here that adapting a program does require time and investment. Programs might be starting at different entry points. Some programs may require only small changes because they're already gender transformative. They're already working with both male and female caregivers, but they aren't really doing much around intimate partner violence. Whereas other programs might need to significantly revisit how they're currently doing things if they're going to, for example, engage fathers for the first time, or really are just beginning to integrate content on gender equality and thinking through a gender transformative approach. And so the guidance can be adapted depending on your starting point. But adapting your program can really help to unlock parents' potential to raise children in more equitable, loving, and nonviolent families. And another one of our panelists, Beatrice, later on is going to share with you a little bit about her organization's journey towards that, adapting their program to really integrate gender and violence prevention. Next slide, please. And so the 4th brief, How to Measure Change, will be coming in April. And we know it's been, people are really looking forward to having this brief that goes into really what happens after adaptation. So your program is, ready to be implemented. How can you monitor and evaluate it to really understand what's working and not, and whether or not it's having the intended impact for children, parents, and families. And so we really do hope that you might join us in 2 months' time for the launch of that brief. But briefs 1 through 3 are currently available in English, in French, and Spanish, with Arabic translations coming soon. And I will share those links to the briefs shortly in the chat box. But we really do hope that you will check them out and might be inspired to think through, adaptations in your own work. And next, we're really going to hear from our other 2 panelists who are going to bring some of this work to life. So next, we're going to hear from Emmanuel Karamage, who is project coordinator at the Rwanda Men's Resource Center.
Thank you, Kate. My name is Emmanuel Karamage. I'm leading a project called Bande Bereho, implemented by Rwanda Men's Resource Center in collaboration with the government of Rwanda. By government of Rwanda, I mean the Rwanda Biomedical Center, Ministry of Gender and Family Promotion, and the National Child Development Agent. This program is being scaled up through the health system, and we are promoting positive parenting to prevent violence against women and against children. Actually, Bandebereho means a role model, which is a program designed as a gender transformative intervention for couples that engage men in gender equality and violence prevention, which is implemented in collaboration by RWAMREC in collaboration with Rwanda Biomedical Center, Ministry of Gender and Family Promotion, and the National Childhood Development Agent through the Rwandan health system in the 3 districts of Rwanda. This program has been designed for parents of under 5 children old and those expecting a child. We are using fatherhood as an entry point to promote men's engagement in reproductive, maternal, child health, but also in prevention of violence against women and against children and caregiving for healthier couple relationship. We are using 17 weekly sessions with the participatory approach and guided with a discussion, open discussion, where 7 sessions are meant for men only and 10 sessions with men and women together as a couples. The program is facilitated by the community health workers who are working under health system managed by the government of Rwanda through the Rwanda Biomedical Center, hospitals, and health centers. Next slide. The program has been evaluated through a multiple site using a randomized control trial for around 1,199 couples, plus some qualitative research. We compiled the control and treatment group, and we did a baseline, and then after 9 months, we did another round of data collection. After 21 months, we did the randomized control trial as mean of evaluation, and we did another one after 6 years of follow-up to assess the sustainability of the outcome within the community. Next slide. And we realized that one program can reach on multiple impact with a long-term impact on a range of outcome even after 6 years later. We realized that the program reduced the intimate partner violence between men and women, but also increased the antenatal care services for pregnant women, where men accompany the partners and supported them. But also we realized that there is a more equitable decision-making and closer relationship between men and women as a couple. And the program reduced violence against children with less punishment and more responsive caregiving, but also men participated in child care and household tasks. But also we realized that there is an increase of the family planning method and the family planning communication between the couples. Next slide. I think that is it. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Emmanuel. I'm just going to ask Emmanuel. You can mute your microphone. I think there's a little bit of feedback. So we're going to hear more from Emmanuel in a minute, but right now I'm going to hand it over to Beatrice Ogutu, who is the Executive Director of ICS-SP Africa, to share a little bit about their program. And then we're going to open it up to a conversation with Emmanuel and Beatrice. And that's where your questions can be coming also in the chat. So over to you, Beatrice.
Thank you very much, Kate, and thank you, Anissa and Jasmine. Good morning, good evening, partners, colleagues, practitioners in the space. Warm welcome to this webinar. We are delighted with the opportunity to share our experience in adapting our Skillful Parenting program. As Kate has said, my name is Beatrice Ogutu. I lead the team at ICS, and at ICS, it matters to us that every child that we interact with is able to realize their full developmental potential. And therefore, over a period of 30 years, we've been co-creating solutions together with communities and families to have models that have impact at family, school, and community levels in order for children to reach their developmental potential. So today I'll be sharing about our journey to adapting our Skillful Parenting program to make it gender transformative. And it's a journey that we have learned a lot, but the outcome of which now has been scaled through the Kenyan government. And therefore, I'd like to invite us to delve deeper into the parenting program. It's really a program that was designed to address and promote positive, respectful, and equitable caregiving practices, and to also promote family relationships that are equitable, with the ultimate aim of addressing violence against children and violence against women in family environments, but more importantly, also promoting the well-being of children across all the domains of the nurturing care framework. So the program is actually delivered through a semi-structured training curriculum that has 12 modules, and these are delivered in 14 weekly sessions, and each session takes about 2.5 hours to deliver. The program, we have primarily implemented it in rural areas, but also peri-urban areas, and we've targeted parents and caregivers of all ranges with children 0 to 18 years of age. In terms of delivery, it's a group intervention delivered through parent peer groups. Parents 18 to 24 come together in a group setting, and they reflect on the 12 modules. For families that need more support than their home visits, but generally also it's supported by a community awareness program, which works on dialogues and works together with community leaders so that they can strengthen the support systems for families. At the moment, it's delivered by frontline workers who are trained and certified by ICS and the government of Kenya. And once they are certified, they are deployed to work with parents and caregivers in the various settings. In as much as possible, we try to layer this program within existing interventions of government, but also of civil society. And the main interventions that we have layered this program with include the economic support interventions, social protection, early childhood care and development, nutrition and care reform interventions in both Kenya, Tanzania, but also we have begun work in terms of layering this program on child labor initiatives in the Western African region, particularly in Cote d'Ivoire. Next slide, please. So in terms of modules, the 12 modules that we delivered through the semi-structured curriculum, the modules look at both child well-being outcomes, but also maternal outcomes. And we include modules that are related to family relationships, the role of a parent and child developmental stages. We look at aspects of stimulation and securing strong attachments, mental health, self-esteem and self-care, values and nonviolent discipline, communication, balancing power and relationships, understanding and preventing violence, family budgeting, and nutrition. More importantly, the facilitators are trained to deliver these modules using very interactive and reflective approaches so that then they can build on what they already know that is working within their communities, but at the same time, when they want to share new information, there's a lot of role modeling, there's a lot of active learning and group sessions, including role plays that we use and are within the curriculum to deliver the various modules. So over the years, we have evaluated this program. Next slide, please. Through different research partnerships, a number of evaluations have been conducted in this program. And just as Emmanuel has said, there are multiple outcomes that we continue to see. And the rationale for us for really adapting this program to make it gender transformative was to benefit on the potential of a gender transformative parenting program to not only address both VAC and VOW, but also to promote gender equity and child well-being outcomes. So we've been able to see a lot of outcomes at intermediate level, but over a period of about 18 months going on, we have seen improved well-being and competence of parents and caregivers, and in turn, of course, reduced violence against children, intimate partner violence, and improved well-being and development of children across the 5 domains of the nurturing care framework. So in terms of adaptation, it was a 2-year process within our organization to adapt the original parenting program to make it transformative. And it started internally really with the justification that, you know, there was a great potential for parenting programs to address both VAC and intimate partner violence. but we missed that opportunity from the design stage. So that was a very compelling justification for us to relook internally and see how we can deepen the impacts of the parenting program to address both forms of violence. And really from around 2017, 2018, there was growing evidence, on the potential of gender transformative parenting programs, and that it was possible to actually adapt local programs in East Africa to be able to address both forms of violence and improve on the well-being outcomes for children. We also were looking at opportunities for primary prevention, really looking at how can we address the risk factors and promote the protective factors that address both forms of violence. And because also a lot of body of knowledge and research around the intersectionality of VAC and VAW was also coming to the fore. So that really compelled us internally to start looking at how then can we deepen, how then can we strengthen. So based on that compelling need internally, also that came out from the first evaluation randomized control trial that we did, we took it upon ourselves to look for partners, technical partners who would help us then adapt our program to reflect the gender transformative lens. And we are happy to have come into partnership with Prevention Collaborative. We had an accompaniment program for over 18 months where we started internally by, interrogating our own value systems because we are products of the same environment. So that was a very elaborate process internally to first support the team, all of us internally, to be able to understand what gender transformative parenting is all about, why is it important, and how then can we go about it. We had the opportunity to read a lot around models that worked in the East African region, but also globally. And then together with our mentors from Prevention Collaborative, we started interrogating our curriculum to see what were the entry points to strengthen, to add more experiential activities to make it more gender transformative. Step 3, really, once we were able to make it gender transformative, we went back to the communities and we tested this together with them. And we were able to refine that content once we tested it with them. Then we went ahead, implemented it, and we continued learning from it. Once we were very confident that it was relevant, it was feasible, it was culturally acceptable, and it had the potential to give us the outcomes that I had shared earlier, then we embarked on a process together with UNICEF, Wellsprings, and Prevention Collaborative, alongside a multi-sectoral technical working group that was established by government to make it scalable through the government of Kenya. And similar work, of course, is going on in Tanzania. The next slide really shows us the different versions of the program, from the original program to the integrated gender transformative program to what now became the National Positive Parenting Program in Kenya. This work was supported internally by Prevention Collaborative over a period of 2 years, but for us to make and succeed in terms of scaling the national program, it took us about 6 years to get there with the support of many partners, including UNICEF, Wellsprings, Prevention Collaborative, among others. So it was a journey of learning, but it was worth it because then the benefits we have seen in terms of having a smart investment that can address multiple outcomes is something that really the government and many partners are continuing to embrace to ensure that our environments are safe and secure for children. Thanks, and over. I'll be happy to respond to questions that come through.
Thank you, Beatrice. And now we're going to open it up to some questions, some prepared questions for Beatrice and Emmanuel, but also to start taking some of the questions that you all might have in the chat. And I'm going to start with Emmanuel. If you can come on video. Yeah, come on video. Just muting the echo there for a second. So Emmanuel, you shared with us a little bit about the Band of Very Hope program, which has a specific focus on engaging fathers alongside their partners to promote more equitable, nonviolent, and healthy relationships. And this is a question that often comes from people of could you tell us a little bit more about how the program is designed for fathers and how it engages them, and what motivates men to join the program?
Thank you. Actually, Bandevireho, which is a gender transformative approach, is designed for couples, either expectant couples or couples with under 5. The entry point is a fatherhood. We are selecting fathers in the community with either expectant couples or under 2 to under 5 years. We go through door to door or community gathering to mobilize those fathers in collaboration with the community health workers. And the trained community health workers are located in the community, and then they can mobilize those parents through different channels. One is door to door, community gathering, and other government meeting. So we bring together 12 couples in the same group education, and we are using a module of 17 weekly session using participatory method. So from session 1 to the session 17, some sessions are meant for men only, others are meant for men and women as a couple together. And then they are using the participatory approach. So based on that, there is a kind of transformation of gender norms, of social and gender norms, but also in general a behavior change toward the reduction of violence against women and against children. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel. And could you share a little bit more on some of the reaction that you get from men who participate in the program, as well as their partners, around the shifts that they see in men's engagement in parenting and caregiving in the home? Sort of what are men's reactions and women's reactions to those changes?
Actually, men, when they are allowed to the program, they are ignoring that they are maybe violent toward the children or toward the couples. But after attending some session, they acknowledge that they are violent. And then by following the different session, sometimes they make apologize to the couples. And they are based on the RCT findings and even other qualitative research, they are more caregiving at household level, and they shifted from violence behavior to the caregiver's behavior at home, and they are taking care of the children, and they are helping children to perform homeworks, and even they can even perform some household tasks, including maybe washing and even feeding the children, sometimes even cleaning the house, and focusing more especially on taking care of the children in general. And they are happy and proud of doing that. But also couples are also, females are very proud to have men who went through a gender transformative approach such as Bandebero, because there is an improved couple relationship at home. There is an improved of positive communication between couples, but also there is a kind of improved relationship toward the management of assets at household level in terms of decision making. When it comes to have a decision at home, they are discussing and then they agree how can we take the common discussion at home. I would say couples are happy, more especially men and even female. So we are proud of what we did actually.
Great. Thank you, Emmanuel.
Thank you, Emmanuel.
I see there are questions coming through in the chat, and you had previously mentioned that the program is scaling through the health sector in Rwanda, and I believe it's reached now more than 40,000 parents. So could you share a little bit more about how you've gone about scaling the program with government? What has facilitated that process? Because I think there is a lot of interest in how to scale these rather intensive approaches.
Thank you, Kate. The the first thing is to have a strong evidence to convince the government the model can tackle the VAC or VAO. So evidence is a paramount, but also involving government leaders from high level, district level, and the community level, from the design and planning, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation, which means we have to involve government leaders from top managers to grassroots level leaders so that we work together. Sometimes, even all of the time, we are together from the planning, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. And if we need to change something, we sit down and then we discuss and we agree how to change that. And another thing is that violence against women and against children is a fact in the community. Where Bandebereho was implemented, there is a quite a reduction of violence against women and against children, which is visible even for non-governmental and government leaders. So that is also another fact that the government leaders need to support the implementation and even other type of activity, because we are contributing to the national effort of reduction of violence against women and against children. And in working together with the government from high level, district level, and the community was to move fast and to scale the intervention. Actually, we are discussing how can we scale the model countrywide, maybe using the government resources.
It looks like we might have lost connection with Emmanuel. So I think we will then pivot to Beatrice to hear a little bit more from you around, you shared in your presentation, sort of the journey that ICS has gone through to really adapt your existing skillful parenting program to take a more gender transformative approach and integrate violence prevention, and some of the process that you undertook for that. But I'd be curious if you could share with us a little bit more about maybe some of the benefits that you've seen after doing that and sort of how communities are responding to the program after these changes.
Thank you, Kate, for the question. Really, a number of benefits in terms of a very good interactive curriculum that reflects upon, builds upon the strengths of parents and caregivers, and is able to walk along with them in a journey where they reflect on their practices and see how they can vision better for the future. So now we have a solution that has great potential for sustainable behavioral change, because then we are tackling the root causes of violence and harsh parenting and really looking at how to shift those norms. So we're looking at, it's gonna be from one generation to the other, and for that, they really, really appreciate. The other aspect that we are really seeing as a benefit is broadened and enhanced outcomes, both from a VAC perspective, where there are more opportunities now to reduce all forms of violence against children within the family, but also address intimate partner violence because they co-occur in the same settings. But also much more importantly is that parents are able to give equal opportunity for both boys and girls within their families to learn, thrive, access education, play, etc. And those were benefits that were really missing from the initial curriculum, which was originally designed to address violence against children. We are looking at opportunities where now we are able to diversify partnerships, both technical and financial, in the VAC space, in the IPV space, in the early childhood care and development space. And all these partners, when they pull their resources together, then we are able to reach many more opportunities and many more families out there. More importantly, also a scalable program that then can reach a wider group of parents and caregivers across different settings in the East Africa region. And that is really appreciated by different government ministries and departments, who then each can find a place in terms of rolling it within their own particular programs and structures. So really from the Ministry of Health, from the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, Community Development and Health in Tanzania, each and every ministry or department or level of government sees their role in being able to roll out this, and especially so because parent and caregiver support was one of the priorities in the national prevention plans for violence against children and women in Kenya and Tanzania. So this was a great opportunity for a model that was scalable, that was impactful, that was culturally relevant to really be scaled to reach a wider audience. So these benefits then will be sustainable over generations. And for us, that's then a smart investment for anybody to be able to look into and adopt.
Thank you, Beatrice. And I see we have a lot of questions coming in about really how do you convince people to participate in these programs. And I think we've been talking a lot about addressing violence against children, violence against women, but that's often not the way these programs are framed to communities, right? So I'd love if you could just share a little bit more about, how you invite people into the program and, what benefits you share with them that they might receive from participating in the program.
Thank you, Kate, for that question. Framing is very important to invite people in to be able to reflect together with you, because when we define it as a parenting program, internally it makes sense. Out there, we talk about a family strengthening program that really builds upon the strengths of parents and caregivers and supports them in their caregiving role in areas of their struggle. So for us, we are looking at both parental well-being, but also child development outcomes. And in terms of how we have sequenced our modules, we start in terms of addressing those relationship factors that really affect both mothers and fathers to live together harmoniously with no conflict, so that they're in a good place to be able to take care of their children better. So when we frame it and we sequence it as such, many more people, including men, we have seen an increase of male involvement in the group intervention piece, because then the first initial modules really come to support them to address the relationship issues they have, the family dynamics that they are, dealing with. And that has placed them in an area where they now see that the program cares for them as parents and caregivers in addition to their children. So that has been able to invite them in. In terms of working with governments to scale this up, there's a lot of consistent messaging around what gender transformative parenting programs mean. There's a lot of misconceptions about gender transformative programming and what it means. So we went in and tried to demystify this with consistent messaging, advocacy, training, and support, so that we are all aligned in terms of what a gender transformative parenting program looks like, what it can do, and what it actually means. It also did help that there was a lot of evidence that is available that these programs have the potential to address both VAC and VAL. But at the same time, then we had the opportunity to be able to work with governments to bring them to the field, demonstrate in practice, pre-test and pilot together with them. So they were able to practice it, see it in practice, see the benefits real time, and that really enabled us then to work together with them with the support of Wellsprings, with the support of UNICEF, to be able to bring this program to scale in the Kenyan context. But it took 6 years to make it happen. So evidence demonstrates consistent messaging around what gender transformative approaches are and what the benefits are, and how then the country can plug it in within the national policy frameworks or action plans that exist at country level.
Thank you, Beatrice. Yeah, indeed. I think both programs, your program and Emmanuel's program, they show that it's a long journey to get to scale, but it's really exciting to see that governments are really buying into scaling these approaches and understanding the benefits of doing so. I'd like to bring maybe Emmanuel back on. I see there's a number of questions, and Beatrice, feel free to respond to this as well, but there's some questions coming in around how to make these programs also disability inclusive, and how you might be responding to, the needs of women with disabilities who are at increased risk of violence, or parents of children with disabilities. So if, Emmanuel or Beatrice, you want to respond to that question as well.
Yeah, thank you, Kate. In the course of the implementation of Bande Vereho, we realized that the disability inclusion is a must. Now we are partnering with women rights organization called UNAB. UNAB is an organization of women living with a disability. So they are integrating disability. They are including disability inclusion in our program, and we are working together so that we make sure that everyone is on board and no one is left behind. And that is the reality, because we have either children with a disability or women with a disability. So we are now integrating disability into the program, and we are working together with the other partners to make sure that no one is left behind.
Thank you very much. In addition to what Emmanuel has talked about, I'd initially say that part of the layering that we do is with the care reform strategy work that is happening here in Kenya. So about 4 years ago, we also collaborated with the Catholic Relief Services in their Families Matters program, where they were seeking to improve and strengthen families in their caregiving role. So really, we worked with them to ensure that the program is inclusive in as much as possible in terms of ensuring access to those parents with disability, but also parents with children who have developmental delays or disability. So that is also ongoing work that we continue to work together with different partners to support us. But connected to it really is mapping out a referral system of partners, including government services that can offer services to parents with disability or parents with children with disability, so that they can access that specialized care that some of them may need to support their children in that role, because really our facilitators are not as professional in terms of addressing special needs, but having a good support system and referral system that then the parents in the group can be redirected to the right support that they need within the environment. But this is work that is also growing internally, and we invite partnerships to think through together with us on how to strengthen that component of work.
Great. Thank you, Beatrice and Emmanuel. I think we're going to wrap up our conversation now, but I'd love to open it. Is there maybe one piece of advice that you two would give to those who might be embarking on a journey of adapting their program to take a gender transformative approach to preventing family violence? Maybe one sentence of recommendation.
It's a worthy journey because, sorry, Emmanuel.
Okay, thank you. For us, the adaptation is possible, but we have to be careful. When adapting a program, most of the time, you have to keep the quality and the fidelity at the same time, maintaining the program as it was during the pilot, based on also on the outcome related to the implementation. So I would advise people the adaptation is possible, but make sure that the quality and the fidelity remain the same as long as you are implementing or scaling up the program.
Thank you. I want to agree with Emmanuel that as you adapt and scale, fidelity remains very, very important. It's a journey that is possible, but requires time. Do not struggle alone. There are partners that can work together with you. We worked together with Prevention Collaborative. It was possible. We also need to be aware that we need flexible funding. Adaptation processes take time, and therefore you need partners, you need donors who can think together with you, who need to have available flexible funding. But then you also need to have a very solid MIL framework, M&E framework, that helps you assess every step of the process, from the adaptation to testing, piloting, consolidating that approach, and continuously measuring the outcomes that come with it. But it's possible, and it's worth it because of the enhanced and broader outcomes that we see. And now evidence is being generated in the low resource settings to show that this is actually much more beneficial, and governments are opening the space for us to discuss scale, and that is important.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Beatrice and Emmanuel. I think these two programs really highlight the opportunities that working with parents has for promoting more equitable, nonviolent, supportive families for children, but also for caregivers, and that these programs are also scalable, and governments are interested in working together with you to take them to scale. So I think that's really exciting for people to hear about, and encourage everyone to look more into both ICS and RWAMREC's work. And I see there's a number of questions about the evidence base and types of programs. So I really do recommend people check out the first brief, which summarizes some of the evidence, and the systematic review that was shared in the chat box. And please do check out the briefs. And I'd love to hand it back now to Anissa to close out the webinar.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you, Beatrice and Emmanuel, for this really enriching conversation today. As we wrap up our discussion, I just want to take a moment to reflect on these critical insights and lessons that were shared from our esteemed panelists. And through the work that Kate, Emmanuel, and Beatrice are involved in, we've really seen the clear evidence that gender transformative parenting programs are not just beneficial, but essential for well-being of both caregivers and children. And when we invest in these programs, we are investing in a future where children are protected and caregivers are supported, and the cycles of violence are broken before they begin. So I think it's important to note that this work cannot happen in isolation. And I'd like to end with a call to action to each of us here today to take what we've learned and turn it into meaningful change through collaboration, commitment, and action at every level, to ensure that children can grow up in environments that foster respect, equality, and nonviolence. So in closing, thank you for your time, insights, and dedication to this important work. And I look forward to continuing this conversation and seeing the impact of our collective efforts. Over to you, Jasmine.
A big thank you again, and to Kate, Beatrice, Emmanuel, Anissa, and just wanted to let everyone know that the recording and the presentation slides will be emailed to everyone after this. But big thank you, and have a great rest of the day. Thank you for joining us.